Where are you? I'm sorry. Suddenly, the dragon statue glows. Ancient blood awakens. Time shatters. Act 1. Rebirth of a mother. 15 minutes to 40 minutes. Yuhan opens his eyes. He's back. 5 months pregnant. 5 months since he entered Imperial Palace. He was the envy of concubines and consorts who hasn't gotten pregnant this fast since they entered Palace. And that too, he was a male ger whose birth rate is too low. He, being the first male ger to conceive a child and was giving attention by the emperor, was not liked by anyone, especially the crown prince and his mother empress and minister Guok. Well, now that he is reborn, everything begins again. And he remembers it all. This time, he smirks. Not gently, but like a man reborn from hell. I will not protect another woman's child again. And I will definitely protect
the reborn dowager's crown. Prologue: The blood of betrayal. The great empire of Tiansu Empire was ruled under 3 genders: women, men, and gers, males who are blessed with the power to conceive heirs. Ger were treasured and feared. Among them was Shen Yuhan, MC, once the most beautiful ger in the empire. At 16, Yuhan entered the harem of Emperor Li Jianwan. He was naive, he loved deeply, and he gave everything. For 20 years he fought through endless schemes, poisonings, assassinations, false accusations. He sacrificed his innocence to protect his son, Prince Li Jun, helping him seize the throne against the crown prince. Now, his son ascends as emperor. Yuhan, at last, is to become Empress Dowager. The ceremony begins. He stands before the dragon statue to accept the Empress Dowager position next to Emperor's son. But a sword pierces his chest. He was shocked, in disbelief. His own son. Li Jun coldly smiles. Mother, you were never my mother, and now your purpose is over. I don't need you anymore. Yuhan freezes. He trembles and asks why. Then his elder sister Shen Meilin walks forward, laughing, wearing Imperial Empress Dowager golden red dress that is identical to himself. She reveals the truth. The child Yuhan gave birth to was switched at birth. Yuhan falls down in pool of his own blood. His real son was stolen, thrown outside the palace. Then the son Yuhan protected and painstakingly pushed up to become emperor, even if he became villain in the eyes of everyone inside and outside of the palace. All that was for who? Not even my own son, but Mei Lin's son. My stepsister manipulated everything, used his love, even though she was stepsister from maidservant. He loved her as his own sister. Used his suffering when his parents had no choice but to send him to the palace as ger male concubine. Used his hands to bloody everything to place her son on the throne. Yuhan utters, "Why, sister? Why so cruel?" She just mocks him, saying everything that belonged to him should have been hers, and who doesn't like power to rule behind curtains? Yuhan clutches Li Jun, his so-called son, to ask, "Don't you have bit of affection for me? Who was the one who did everything for you? I am the one who nursed you, who taught you. So why? Tell me why."
Enough. I never asked to become emperor. Because of you, I had to kill my own love. If you didn't push me to become emperor, I would have loved and married my sweetheart. It's you who killed him. So just die and atone for every bad thing you did in name of doing good to me. Shen Meilin steps forward to block Li Jun and orders, "Kill him." Yuhan bleeds at the dragon altar. His tears mix with blood. His last words, "My child, where are you? I'm sorry." Suddenly, the dragon statue glows. Ancient blood awakens. Time shatters. Act 1. Rebirth of a mother. 15 minutes to 40 minutes. Yuhan opens his eyes. He's back. 5 months pregnant. 5 months since he entered Imperial Palace. He was the envy of concubines and consorts who hasn't gotten pregnant this fast since they entered Palace. And that too, he was a male gur whose birth rate is too low. He, being the first male gur to conceive a child and was giving attention by the emperor, was not liked by anyone, especially the crown prince and his mother empress and minister Guok. Well, now that he is reborn, everything begins again. And he remembers it all. This time, he smirks, not gently, but like a man reborn from hell. "I will not protect another woman's child again. And I will definitely protect my own son." He wants to immediately change all his servants, but he knows there must be spies everywhere around him. Otherwise, how on earth did my child get swapped with my sister's when she wasn't even inside the palace when they both gave birth? He starts to plan to silently notice everything, and when the correct moment arrives, he will strike at them all. The wet nurse must be executed. The midwife must be removed. The guards must be replaced. The maid he trusted before must be sold away. Everyone who betrayed him will absolutely be eliminated quietly, but definitely. Yuhan starts to become ruthless against anyone who tries to scheme against him. He swats his enemies like flies and destroys the crown prince and empress spies. He doesn't show mercy to his enemies like from past life. If he got villain title in past life, even when he wasn't that cruel, then he will become true villain and protect himself in this life. The emperor starts to notice, because this Yuhan no longer waits outside his chambers, no longer begs for his love, no longer cries against injustice done to him, no longer tries to ask for his support. And that catches Yen Yuan's attention. The strange ability. One night, Emperor Zhen Yuan hears Yuhan's voice inside his head. Not spoken aloud, just thoughts. The western border will fall in 3 months. Zhen Yuan freezes. Yuhan is grinding ink next to him silently, without speaking, not even concerned expression. For a while now, his new concubine has stopped expressing himself all of a sudden. The emperor wondered if Yuhan lost interest in himself. But the voice continues. Minister Gao will definitely betray you. The crown prince, who is his nephew, will poison your tea, and mysterious assassination that led to your health becoming worse and bedridden. Well, should I inform this dog emperor? But why should I when he got sick and offended the crown prince mother last life? Emperor just punished him, and I had to give birth without any support. It's better to rely on myself than expect anything from this cold-hearted dog emperor. Emperor Zhen Yuan slams the desk and points at Yuhan. You are so bold! How dare you! Yuhan kneels down and apologizes, but strongly confronts Melny that he hasn't even spoken a word to your majesty. Zhen sits back and presses his forehead in pain and dismisses Yuhan. Yuhan pretends to think and apologize, but in his mind curses the emperor for being so fickle and leaves. The emperor laughs in anger and disbelief. He feels quite intrigued by his new power, and also his new concubine is really interesting. He should keep an eye on him. The emperor orders his secret spies to investigate the crown prince and his uncle, Minister Gao. After a few days, he found every single thing Yuhan's inner voice is true.
the emperor tries his new power on eunuchs and other consorts, and even the crown prince. But he realizes he can only hear Yuhan's heart. And this he finds very interesting.
Act 2. The Emperor's Obsession. Yuhan keeps avoiding him, but Zen1 becomes curious, then fascinated, then addicted, because Yuhan's thoughts are unlike anyone else. Not love, not jealousy, only survival and hidden pain. One night, Zen1 asks, "Why have you changed?" Yuhan smiles. "Your Majesty never cared before." That answer strikes him deeply. Through Yuhan's mind, he hears, "Because I died by the hands of the son I raised." Zen1 is horrified.
One night, the emperor worked alone beneath flickering candlelight. Outside, rain fell softly against the palace roof. Not far away, Shen Yuhan sat beside his window, silently grinding ink for tomorrow's memorials. His expression was calm. But inside, the emperor suddenly heard Yuhan's thoughts. 3 months from now, endless rain will destroy the southern riverbanks. Li Zhenyuan's brush stopped. He slowly looked toward Yuhan's palace. The voice continued. More than 200,000 people will lose their homes. The ministers will lie and say the harvest is plentiful. Then famine begins. Children will starve. Mothers will sell themselves for food. Corpses will fill the roads. The emperor stood up abruptly. Cold sweat formed on his forehead. He immediately summoned the shadow guards. "Ride south tonight. Inspect every river and reservoir. Report everything." Scene 4. A heart full of regret. The emperor secretly visited Yuhan that evening. The Ger sat quietly beside a lotus pond, gently rocking his sleeping son. Moonlight reflected across the water. Yuhan smiled softly at the baby. Inside his heart, the emperor heard another voice. "At least, these people didn't die this time. I'm glad." There was no pride, no desire for reward, only relief. Li Zhenwen's chest tightened. For the first time, he wondered how many disasters this quiet Ger had witnessed and how much pain he carried alone. After that day, Li Zhenwen found excuses to visit Yuhan every evening. He claimed he wished to see the prince, but his eyes rarely left Yuhan. Sometimes Yuhan simply drank tea. Sometimes he painted. Sometimes he read quietly beneath the lanterns. The emperor listened, waiting. Then, "Minister Chen will secretly sell military grain next month." The emperor immediately ordered an investigation. Minister Chen was arrested. Another future changed. Scene 6. Obsession begins. Weeks passed. The emperor realized something frightening. Whenever he couldn't hear Yuhan's thoughts, he became restless. He would stop reading memorials, lose interest in banquets, ignore beautiful concubines. Instead, he would walk toward Yuhan's palace. Only after hearing Yuhan's calm heartbeat and gentle thoughts did his own mind settle. He finally admitted the truth. "I've become addicted to hearing his heart." Scene 7. The court notices. The harem whispered endlessly. His Majesty visits noble consort Shen every night. The emperor even smiles now. The cold emperor actually laughs. Jealousy spread throughout the palace. The empress clenched her fists. The crown prince narrowed his eyes. Shen Meilin smiled disappeared. Their carefully woven plans were beginning to unravel. Final scene. The beginning of love. One rainy night, Yuhan accidentally slipped while carrying his son. Before he could fall, strong arms caught him. Li Zhenwan held him tightly. Their eyes met. Yuhan quickly lowered his gaze. "My apologies, Your Majesty." But inside his heart, the emperor heard the truth. "Don't be kind to me. If I start believing you again, I'll lose everything again. Li Jianwan froze. His grip tightened unconsciously. For the first time in his life, the mighty emperor wanted only one thing: to erase the fear hidden inside Shen Yuhan's heart. As thunder echoed across the palace, the emperor quietly whispered to himself, "No matter what happened in the future you remember, I will change it."
Act 3. The Stolen Prince. Scene 1. The Night of Birth. Thunder roared across the imperial palace as rain poured over the golden rooftops. Inside Jade Orchid Palace, servants rushed in panic. "Push, noble consort! The baby's coming!" Yuhan's face was pale as snow. Sweat soaked his black hair. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and every painful breath echoed through the chamber. He gripped the silk bedding until his fingers bled. Hours of agony finally ended. A loud cry filled the room. A healthy baby boy. The chief midwife smiled with relief. "Congratulations, noble consort! It's a prince!" Yuhan reached out with trembling hands. The tiny baby grasped his finger. His exhausted face broke into a tearful smile. "My son, I'll protect you, no matter what." Outside the imperial palace, Emperor Li Jianwan smiled after hearing the baby's first cry. He ordered rewards for every servant in Jade Orchid Palace. But hidden beneath the celebration, darkness had already entered the palace.
Deep into the night, Shen Meilin quietly entered through a hidden passage, carrying another newborn wrapped in crimson silk. Behind her stood the Empress. Beside them, the Crown Prince, and Minister Guo, the Empress's powerful father. The Empress looked coldly at the sleeping infant. "Once this child becomes Crown Prince, the throne will belong to our family forever." Minister Guo nodded. "No one must ever discover the truth." Shen Meilin hesitated for a moment before looking at Yuhan. He to remain a useless concubine forever? Shen Meilin lowered her head. "No," the Crown Prince whispered. "Hurry, the Emperor will arrive soon."
Scene 3. The Exchange. The chief midwife secretly accepted a pouch of gold. She quietly lifted Yuhan's sleeping son. Shen Meilin reached out. Just as she was about to replace the babies, a weak voice stopped everyone. "What are you doing?" Yuhan had awakened. His pale eyes slowly opened. He stared at the two babies, then at his sister. His entire body froze. "No, Meilin, you wouldn't." Shen Meilin looked guilty for only a heartbeat. Then her expression became cold. "I'm sorry, but my son deserves the throne more." Yuhan tried to crawl toward his baby despite the pain of childbirth. "Give him back." Scene 4. The Emperor arrives. Suddenly, boom! The palace doors burst open. The Emperor Li Jianwan strode inside, surrounded by armored imperial guards. His sharp eyes swept across the room. Two babies, the terrified midwife, Shen Meilin, the Empress, the Crown Prince, Minister Guo, Yuhan bleeding on the bed. The Emperor's voice became terrifyingly calm. "Explain." No one answered. The room fell silent. One frightened maid suddenly knelt. "Confession, Your Majesty. It was the Empress. Minister Guo bribed the midwives. The Crown Prince guarded the entrance. Lady Shen brought another baby to exchange with noble consort Shen's son." The chief midwife collapsed. "I confess, we were ordered to switch the princes." Shen Meilin burst into tears. I was forced," the Empress shouted. "Silence!" The Emperor slowly looked toward her. His eyes were filled with murderous rage. "So, you dared scheme against an imperial prince." Scene 6. Imperial Fury. Li Jianyuan personally carried Yuhan's newborn child into his father's arms. He handed the child back to Yuhan. No one ever will touch our son again. Yuhan held the baby tightly and cried uncontrollably. For the first time, he finally believed fate had truly changed. Scene 7. Judgment. The emperor sat upon the dragon throne. Every minister knelt in silence. The entire court trembled. His decree echoed throughout the palace. Former empress, strip her of her title, confine her to cold palace for life. Crown prince, remove his title, confine him under permanent guard. Minister Guo, confiscate all property, sentence him to execution. The corrupt midwives and servants, execute immediately. Finally, the emperor looked toward Shen Meilin. She crawled toward Yuhan, crying, "Brother, please forgive me." Yuhan quietly closed his eyes. "You were willing to destroy my child. You stopped being my sister long ago." The emperor spoke coldly. "Shen Meilin, you shall spend the rest of your life in the imperial prison. You will never again see the sun." She collapsed in despair as guards dragged her away.
Hey, don't forget to give thumbs up, give me a comment, and subscribe to see part 2. Now let's get into the story.
That evening, the palace finally became quiet. The emperor entered Jade Orchid Palace carrying warm medicine himself. He gently tucked the blanket around Yuhan and looked at the sleeping prince. His usually cold eyes softened. "Our son is safe." Yuhan looked down at the tiny baby sleeping peacefully in his arms. Tears silently rolled down his face. Inside his heart, only one thought remained. "This life, no one will ever steal you from me again." Outside the palace, snow began to fall softly. The old fate had been broken. A new destiny had finally begun. Act 4. When the emperor fell first. Months passed after the child-swapping conspiracy. The imperial court noticed a change. The once cold and ruthless Emperor Li Jianyuan no longer spent his nights reviewing endless memorials. Instead, every evening after court, his footsteps unconsciously led him to Jade Orchid Palace. The ministers whispered, "The emperor visits noble consort Shen every day. He has ignored the entire harem." Even the palace servants smiled. "Our emperor finally looks happy." Inside the palace garden, little Prince Li Wei sat on a blanket trying to crawl after colorful butterflies. Shen Yuhan laughed softly. "Slowly, you'll fall." Before the prince could tumble, strong hands lifted the child into the air. The little prince burst into cheerful laughter. "Father!" Li Jianyuan smiled warmly as he held his son above his head. Yuhan froze. In 2 lifetimes, he had never seen the emperor smile like this. His heart quietly whispered, "He looks like an ordinary father." The emperor heard every word. His smile grew even gentler. Scene 3. Family Dinner. For the first time, the emperor ordered all evening meals to be served in Jade Orchid Palace. No court officials, no concubines, only 3 people, the emperor, Yuhan, their son. Little Li Wei stubbornly refused to eat. Rice covered his tiny face. The emperor sighed dramatically. "I command the crown prince to open his mouth." The little prince giggled. "No." Yuhan couldn't hold back his laughter. Li Zhenren stared at him. The sound of Yuhan laughing was more beautiful than any imperial music. Scene 4. The Fever. One winter night, little Li Wei suddenly developed a high fever. Yuhan stayed awake all night holding him. The emperor canceled court. He personally carried the child through the palace while royal physicians followed behind. Hours later, the fever finally broke. Yuhan burst into tears from relief. The emperor gently embraced both mother and son. We protected him, and will always protect him. For the first time, Yuhan didn't pull away. Scene 5. Moonlit Confession. Several days later, the emperor found Yuhan standing alone beneath blooming plum blossoms. Snow slowly drifted around them. Neither spoke. Finally, the emperor broke the silence. "I've heard your heart. I know you've suffered. I cannot erase your past, but let me protect your future." Yuhan lowered his eyes. "I don't know how to trust again." The emperor stepped closer. "Then trust me little by little. I'll wait."
Scene 6. The First Hug. A cold wind swept through the garden. Yuhan shivered. Without thinking, the emperor removed his own fur cloak and wrapped it around Yuhan's shoulders. Their fingers brushed. Yuhan looked into his eyes. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, Yuhan quietly leaned against the emperor's shoulder, just for a moment. Li Zhenwan smiled. He didn't dare move, afraid the dream would disappear. Scene 7. Jealous Emperor. During court, several young nobles praised Shen Yuhan's beauty. The emperor's expression darkened immediately. That evening, he ordered additional palace guards around Jade Orchid Palace. Yuhan blinked. "Your Majesty, why are there so many guards?" The emperor calmly answered, "To protect you." Inside his heart, Yuhan laughed. He's jealous. The emperor nearly choked on his tea.
Spring arrived. Cherry blossoms danced through the palace gardens. Little Yu Wei chased butterflies with the palace maids. Watching from the pavilion, Yuhan smiled peacefully. The emperor sat beside him. "You smile much more now." Yuhan nodded. "Because this life is different." The emperor gently took his hand. "Is it because of me?" Yuhan looked at him. For the first time, his eyes no longer carried fear, only warmth. He answered softly, "Yes." The emperor leaned forward. Their lips met beneath falling cherry blossoms. A slow, gentle, tender kiss, not born from desire, but from healing.
Scene 9. Love Returned. That night, Yuhan quietly watched the emperor sleeping beside their son. Moonlight illuminated both faces. Inside his heart, a gentle voice whispered, "I loved you once, then I hated you. But somewhere along the way, I've fallen in love with you again." The emperor wasn't asleep. He heard every word. Without opening his eyes, a single tear escaped. It was the happiest moment of his life. Scene 10. A Family Reborn. 1 year later, the imperial family walked through the palace gardens. The emperor carried Li Wei on his shoulders. The little prince laughed happily. Yuhan walked beside them, holding the emperor's hand. The palace servants watched with smiles. The cold emperor had become a loving husband. The broken concubine had become a cherished partner. And the child who had once been destined to disappear now grew up surrounded by love. Above them, golden sunlight poured through the blooming trees. For the first time in both their lives, they truly looked like a family.
Act 5. Epilogue. The Destiny That Was Rewritten. Scene 1. The Forgotten Record. 3 years had passed. The empire flourished under Emperor Li Jinwan's wise rule. Yuhan had been crowned empress, and little Prince Li Wei had officially become the crown prince. A quiet afternoon, Yuhan visited the imperial archives to organize old palace records. Among thousands of dusty scrolls, one old file slipped from a shelf. Its title read, "The Infant Found Outside the Eastern Palace Gate." Yuhan's heart skipped a beat. His trembling hand slowly opened the record. Inside was a report written more than 10 years ago. A newborn infant bearing an imperial jade pendant was discovered outside the Eastern Palace Gate during a snowstorm. Prime Minister Gu Rong rescued the child and secretly raised him as his adopted son until his
Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Jasniv BL Stories. Then let's get into the story, yeah?